Clark, and I'm here with Bobby Hood. Bobby, how are you doing today?
Just great. I've got all my students, in the middle of applying to colleges, and all my seniors, and so this is a good topic for today. Just figuring this all out.
Yeah, so if you are a parent of a senior in high school, you might be wondering what you need to do right now for
Hmm.
your student to help them get prepared for college. So we have a series that we're doing right now that's talking about, what that timeline looks like when you're a senior in
Hmm.
in your senior year. So, for fall, it's really the very first thing that we've got on our list is college tours, making sure we
Yeah,
get those college tours in.
absolutely. I mean, in theory, you would spend some of your summer before senior year doing some college tours, but you might not be done. So wrap that up. Go visit the places that you've narrowed down. You might have gotten your SAT or ACT score, so now you know where you're likely to be able to get in and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, if you've narrowed down your career choice and know what
Mhm.
your major is, that's going to impact where you want to go to school as well. So you need to make sure that all of that aligns and makes sense.
Absolutely. And then you can go to that actual school and see what the classrooms are like and see what kind of labs they have and all of that. And, really get a look. So it helps to know what it is you're going to do instead of just wandering aimlessly around the campus, right?
Right. And in our college planning timeline, we talk about areas to explore, what are smart things to be doing, and what the
Hmm.
tactics are. So those very first two that we talked about is really in that explore category, where it's like,
Hmm.
let's, just see what's out there. Let's start narrowing things down. So it's this time though in your senior year that, you're really needing to get that exploration phase kind of in motion for sure.
Absolutely.
You've
And,
still got
and
time, but yeah.
yeah,
It's
and you may find like if you haven't done enough college tours or things, or if you haven't done the exploring, you might find that you've got 20 colleges you're thinking about applying to. And so a couple of visits can really help narrow that down. And you can get a feel of, do I want someplace small or big or medium sized? What kind of, does the location matter? All that.
yes, absolutely. So let's talk about the smart things that you should be doing during this time frame.
Yes.
And the very first one is start to create a calendar because you have a ton of important dates that you need to be thinking about, and you just don't want to miss what those things are. So, just plan out the calendar, write it in
Mhm.
there. If you have to, just get a calendar just for college
Mhm.
planning and
Yeah.
write them in. And I'm telling you, it will make your life a lot simpler.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think most people have a calendar for the school stuff, but it just doesn't occur to them to put the college stuff on there. And I know that senior year can be filled with, arguments and anger because, you say, oh my gosh, you haven't started your essays yet or things like that. Right. So if you've got a calendar and you're looking at it each week, and it's that same thing, take a day each week and just look and see, okay, what should we be doing this week?
And that's the big reason, Bobby, we have this in the smart category because you're
Mhm.
right. I mean, this is a stressful time for
Yeah.
students and parents. And if you know you're on track and you've got the dates
Mhm.
all in your calendar, it's going to be a much smoother transition to get through
Absolutely.
this.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And then we've got getting your college applications in for early decision. So let's talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so lots and lots of colleges offer early decision or early action or both, right? Early decision is the one that's binding. So you choose one college, you apply early decision there. If you get accepted, then you agree that you will go there if the financial aid package, works out correctly. Early action is just schools that allow you to apply early and get a decision early, but it's not binding on you. So you have to decide, do I have a college that is so much my number one that I want to apply early decision? And statistically, acceptances are way higher if you apply early decision, early action. Colleges accept a larger portion of those groups, possibly because more qualified students apply that way or whatever. But regardless, if there's higher acceptance rate, yeah, apply early decision or early action, to places that you're sure you'd go to if you were accepted.
Yeah, that's a big one. And the dates on that, Bobby. Let's talk about
Yeah.
when it happens.
So every college is different, but the standard early action deadline is November 1. So I'd say like 80% of colleges that have early acceptance or early action or early decision deadlines. It's usually November 1, a few are earlier, a few are later. You can find that if you just search early action, early decision deadlines. There's a great website from Compass Prep that explains all of that, that lists all of the deadlines for all the colleges.
And I am going to put that in the chat too.
Yeah, that's at compassprep.com/early action, early decision deadlines. But anyway, yeah. And so that's something absolutely to keep in mind. And also sort of like that November 1 deadline, that's also kind of when that's really the date you should try to get your college applications in everywhere. Because starting November 1, colleges are going to start accepting people, even, just generally, even schools that don't have early action, early decision deadlines. They get a bunch of applications on November 1. A lot of times that's when they open their applications at all. And so you don't want to be sending your application in January, right? You want your application to be sitting there on that admissions officer's desk from the first day that applications are open. That shows them you're organized, you got your stuff together, and then they will be considering you the whole way through the process.
Yes.
That's it.
However, if you're not quite ready yet,
right,
we do have some tactical things that we know that you need to get accomplished. And these are the things that everybody, they feel like they're in control when they know what these tactical things are. So they're important. And the first one is, and we've talked about this a little bit, is to narrow your list of top college choices. So these are for the kids that you just aren't there yet, and that's fine. But you need to start narrowing that list.
Yep.
The second tactical thing on our list is take the SAT and ACT tests as needed. So go ahead and start registering for the ACT and SAT test. Bobby, what are the deadlines coming up?
Oh, yeah. So there is an ACT. Let me look at this way. The next ACT is October 23rd, and I think we're in the late registration period for that one, but you can still get in there and register for that one. So you got the ACT October 23rd, and then it's SAT November 6th. And so there are 2 good opportunities still left where you could get your score in by the end of November. And you can go ahead and send in your application on November 1st and then supplement it with your new SAT or ACT score, have it sent directly to the college. So that's fine. You can go ahead and apply and then update your application with your SAT score after. So yeah, so that's October 23rd, November 6th. And then there is, I think, December tests, the December 4th SAT and the December 11th ACT. So lots of opportunities in the fall for taking both of those tests.
And don't do what the Clarks did. We made sure that we were in the late sign up every time, so we paid extra. So get ahead of it and sign up at least for those December tests if you haven't already signed up for the October.
Absolutely.
November. Yes. Yeah. Lordy.
And you can always find those. Absolutely. And you can always find those dates on my website if you go to bobbyhoodonlinetutoring.com. And then you just click SAT and ACT test dates at the top. I've always got the updated test dates and registration deadlines and everything on there.
Great. All right. So another tactical thing that needs to happen, we've got a lot of them during this time frame for seniors, is gathering your letters of recommendation for your applications. So if you haven't requested them already, it's really time to make that happen, because you want to get ahead of the teachers and counselors and all these people that are being asked by a lot of students for these letters of recommendation. So let's get ahead of that. And here's a good tip for you on that. And I know, Bobby, you're aching to jump in here. But if you have your Clifton Strengths report, that is a great thing to add when you're asking for these letters of recommendation, because it gives so much insight into how you're built, and it would help for the people that you're asking to write these letters. It just gives them more meat to talk about you and tell about why you're great.
Absolutely. Yeah. And this is one of those things where these things, all the tactical stuff stacks on top of each other, right? You need a resume to attach to your college application. So you need to go ahead and prepare that resume, and then you should send that resume to your letters of recommendation writers so that they can see more about you and have more stuff to say about you. Obviously, if possible, you should pick out those people in the spring, give them that information over the summer, right? And then let them do it during the summer before the school year starts. But, if a teacher, the teachers care so much about their students, they'll do it, whenever you ask. It's just always best to do it as early as possible. So if you don't have them yet, give them all the information you can so that they can write that letter really easily at this point.
All right. And then we've got submit your college applications.
Mm-hmm.
That should be happening throughout, right? It's, as we talked about, you can do early decision, but let's start submitting those. Really, Bobby, if you had to say what's the best time to have them all submitted by, what would you say?
Oh, I think each college has its own day when applications open. It's a lot of times November 1. Absolutely, the 100%, the most important thing you could possibly do is submit it on the first day that it opens. Even if you don't have your SAT or ACT final score yet, just go ahead and submit it. Like that's the best thing you can do, because if nothing else, it's just familiarity that those admissions officers are going to be assigned your file. And if it's early on in the process, they'll have a lot more time to get to know who you are and think about whether to admit you or not, and to present you to the committee.
What's the last possible time that you can submit a college application?
Like the latest? Mm-hmm. I think decisions start I think the official decision day is more like March 15th or something, is usually when most colleges will give their regular admissions decisions. So, probably, January is the latest time that makes any sense, right? But even then, colleges are already going to be mostly done with their process, right? So I would say, November, December is the only real safe time that you should submit. But, you can keep submitting like really late in the process. You could even submit in April, but there's only going to be like 25 spots left, that there's
right. And that's the risk.
So nobody wants to do that. Right.
Yeah, that's
absolutely
the risk you take if you wait. And as you know, if anybody's been listening to Bobby and I speak, it's always about simplifying this college planning process and hopefully making it a little bit less stressful for you. But knowing those dates, I think, is important. And knowing that if just the stars are not aligning, you do have time, but the best time to get those in then is before the holidays.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. And it's just like, it's interesting because you've got that, the Common App is what you use to apply to most colleges. You fill it out and then you change it for each school or whatever, but it's basically all in there. But then there are other schools in Texas. There's the Apply Texas system. University of California has its system. So you may be ending up putting all your information into multiple different, systems. And then you might apply to some college that doesn't even use any of that, and you have to actually do their own application. So it can really get tedious. And so you've got to plan ahead and get all that data together so that you can do it. It's going to take hours and hours and days to fill those things out. So just start plugging away at it.
Yeah. All right. And then the last thing that we wanted to talk about on the tactical side is looking into financial aid. We talk about this a lot. It's really taking your own finances into consideration, having the conversations within your home as to what you're going to be paying for, what your child is going to be paying for, so that they can use that information in their decision-making process. And really finding out the local financial aid events that are going on, any school-sponsored seminars, whatever you can find on the financial side is really important.
Absolutely. And also, just as a piece of that, I always want to say, to remind people of this, part of this is filling out the federal application for student financial aid, the FAFSA, and this is something that technically the student fills out, but it includes the parent's financial tax information and your last year's tax return information, all this stuff. And this is probably a situation where a lot of people have not shared their actual tax return with their high school students. So this is an uncomfortable situation. And then some people think, oh, I'll just not fill it out. But generally, most schools will not consider you for any financial aid at all if you don't fill out the the application for student financial aid. So you don't have to be low income or something to fill that out. Everyone needs to fill it out. And it's not very fun. So start looking into it, because there are lots of questions, on it, and you got to think about it.
And I'll tell you, we've got a great resource for that too. We've got a person that helps you with FAFSA, and her name is Maggie. And she also has this tool that you can use, that you can put in the schools that you're interested in. And I love this, Bobby. It spits out exactly what it's going to cost based on what you've got in your 529, based on what loans you want to do. And it basically says, here's what you're going to pay for this school if your child gets out in 4 years.
It's amazing. That's the most important thing, because you've been through it. Like, you honestly just have no idea before you start in this process what these numbers are going to be like. Or, the FAFSA, when you fill it out, creates an EFC, expected family contribution. But that number, it might be $60,000 per year or something. And you think, oh, does that mean I'm supposed to pay $60,000, or I only have to pay $60,000? It has almost nothing to do with actually what the college aid might be. So it's a very confusing process, right?
Oh my gosh, Bobby, it's so confusing. It is so confusing. So if you are interested in having somebody that's an expert looking at that for you, I'll put Maggie's information into the chat part.
Yeah, you can't overstate that, how helpful that is.
You can't. And I say this all the time. I preach about what college costs all the time, Bobby. And it's so interesting, because everybody it kind of is like nobody acknowledges it or speaks to it before your kid goes to college. It's when you start writing out those big checks, when all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, what the heck? It's coming, but you don't understand it until you start writing those big checks. Get ahead of it. It's just, it will make you feel better knowing, or make you really scared, but it does help with the decision-making process. You've got to know what this is going to cost. And this ties into everything we talk about all the time. It's also doing what you can to help your kid get through college in 4 years, because it's expensive.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody wants to pay for an extra year that they weren't planning on. My gosh. Absolutely. Nope. And so that's really what we're here to help with, is simplifying this, understanding the process. Like I do help students with their essays and things like that. And so people like us can be good resources to answer questions as you go through this process, because it's very confusing. But all we're trying to do here is just kind of make sure you've got a list of things to think about, and that's it. And so I, recommend everyone, listening here, download that timeline from Kristen's website, take a look at it, and just follow it. And you're going to find everything so much easier.
And I'll include that in the comments on Facebook, and as well as on YouTube as well.
Excellent.
Okay. Thanks.
Absolutely.